Help us, O God, to remember, through the example of Jesus Christ, that what we keep, we lose, and only what we give remains our own. Amen. Those are the words of the school prayer that I said over and over and over again, morning and night, at St. Catherine's School in Richmond, Virginia, where I was a boarding student my last 2 years of high school. My friend and sister deacon, Audrey Gonzalez, attended St. Catherine's too, though many years after I was there. And she can vouch for the fact that after you say that prayer over and over and over again, the words are seared into your mind permanently. What we keep, we lose, and only what we give remains our own. I don't know how many of you were here last Sunday for the 10 o'clock service, for the Requiem Mass, but this choir and their leaders put flesh and blood for me into that prayer. Keeping nothing back, they created a truly hallowed and glorious experience for all of us and for the whole communion of saints, here and departed. A good friend of mine said she said, saints were popping up all over the place for me. I even heard my mother say, now, Ann, that is wonderful music. So thank you. The view from where I sat last week was squished into one of those pews. There was no other seat. And I had a wonderful view of the whole picture. The three priests behind that gorgeous altar that the Flower Guild and the Altar Guild had prepared. The orchestra and choir sat all up here in the chancel. And as I sat there and watched the glory and the order and then I experienced the pacing of the service, I was struck by the power of worship and of the community in this place. Then we all walked, if you can believe this, everyone in silence back through to the columbarium where that was dedicated, and then there was this wonderful party for people of all ages afterwards. Now that is church to me. So thank you all of you, particularly the choir, who made that possible for us. But your leaders, the orchestra members, the clergy, acolytes, ushers, ministers of communion, and as I mentioned, the Altar Guild, without whom I will tell you there would not be church. I said I would rather be ordained than be on the Altar Guild. It was terrifying to me. And the only thing that broke my reverie last Sunday occurred during the announcements, when Chris outlined the week's activities. And then he said, next week is Pledge Sunday. Knowing that I was scheduled to preach, and also that Chris has a wicked sense of humor, I thought maybe he was playing a public joke on me. But I was wrong. Here I am, and it is indeed Pledge Sunday. The gospel reading is tailor-made to fit this occasion. The story of that poor widow without whom no Pledge Sunday would be complete. Stewardship season without the widow's mite would be like Thanksgiving without the turkey, Christmas without presents, or Easter without eggs, Barbara Brown Taylor says, and I agree. And therein lies the preacher's problem. The brief story is so dramatic and so familiar that we tend to reduce it to platitudes. Jesus notices a poor widow who gives her last penny to the Jerusalem temple. The age-old message that I've always heard is the widow gave all she had, and we should too. This causes me to squirm because I know that I cannot do that. And maybe you have had the same experience. So lately, I've noticed that maybe to accommodate people like me, preachers are saying it really has to do more with time and talent than it does only with money. But the fact is, it's about money. That's what Jesus is telling us about. and other things too. But yesterday, I turned to this financial wizard I live with, my husband, Frank, and I said, would you please read this gospel and give me your reaction? He read it, looked up, and said, that is a stupid thing to do. No one should give everything they have to live on. So he could be standing here telling you that. And he is right on one level. And I want to say that I believe, I'm sure, I speak for the Stewardship Committee, for the clergy, for all the leadership here, when I say that no one condones any appeal, religious or otherwise, that leaves anyone destitute or even close to destitute. There's no way that Jesus could have been pleased that the widow left herself with nothing to live on, but there is something about her that draws him to her and causes him to point her out to his disciples. They've been asking him about greatness, who could sit next to him when the kingdom came. And Jesus says now, in effect, you've been very interested in greatness. Look at her. She has done something great. I like to think of her greatness in Jesus' eyes coming from her integrity. She must have had some income, or she wouldn't have had those 2 pennies. But she does not whine. She doesn't appear to be bitter. She decides to give them, and she does so without fanfare. Obviously, in the first century culture, no woman was educated. But somewhere along the way, someone had taught that woman that what you keep, you lose, and only what you give remains your own. Which takes me right back to last Sunday. During the sermon that day, Chris said, we won't change the world by going to church. We won't change the world by going to church. We will only change the world by being the church. And that is what I see happening here at Calvary right now, with as many of us as possible of every age and stage in life are being the church, inside and outside. I was an active deacon, as many of you know, and staff member for many years. But now my role is largely as supporter and cheerleader. And these days, it is the most joyful, delightful role. I don't think that pastoral care, preaching, formation, education, music, and food, oh, the food, has ever been more personal, more appropriate, and more uplifting than it is right now. From baptism through burial, Calvary serves us, families and individuals, with excellence and care. Weekly Bible studies, Wednesday nights, and Sunday mornings. Every time we enter here, there's a palatable sense of welcome, and there are special events that have caught my eye. I had never heard of a lobster palooza until this year, but I understand it was a triumph, and I'll be there next year. And there's another thing called Halloween Trunk or Treat, where this year the rector, unrecognizable, thank God, as an Alabama farmer, blackened his teeth and dispensed a facsimile of cow pies to all comers. Churches all through this country may be experiencing decline in attendance, but not here. Making God's love visible in downtown Memphis is our published mission statement. And that is exactly what I see happening inside and outside our walls. Our children make these wonderful sacks of non-perishable food for us to distribute to people all over town. The wonderful Grizzlies Prep School right here on our block and Calvary Place Child Care Center downstairs has answered the prayers of so many downtown parents who work here. And it might interest you to know that our hospitality hub, also on our block, has no hot meals, no clothing to dispense, and no beds. We simply talk to people one-on-one and go with them in their journey from homelessness to hope. I like to think that Calvary is the healthy alternative to the oppressive situation in the Jerusalem temple. Calvary makes God's love visible to all people, not just the privileged few. Every Sunday morning at 7:30, scrambled eggs, bacon, and hot biscuits are served to huge rooms full of men and women. Today, over 100 people. And they have prayers, warm hospitality, and seasonal clothes. And Christine Todd tells me, please, now is the season we need to bring winter coats, particularly for men. Christine is the coordinator of community ministries here. And there's no question in my mind, but she was raised on the mantra, what you keep, you lose, and only what you give remains our own. She emailed me this week and said she had a brochure that I might want to hold up, and I thought it was about one particular ministry, and I said, I don't think I can hold up a brochure in the pulpit. Here it is. It's called Calvary Works. It's the most amazing document. There is something every single one of us can do, inside and outside, with others, with a community right here. It is just, it's so thorough. And these are outward and visible signs of Calvary making a difference. Waffle Shop, Lenten Preaching Series, those are our flagship ministries to the whole community. There's also this wonderful Scarborough Fair and Friends of Thistle Farm. We have Soup Sunday. There's even hopes to bring a Syrian refugee family here. Work at Carnes Elementary, a partnership underway with St. Jude. And there's a ministry I'm just learning about called Lives That Matter, and I cannot wait to be part of it or witness its program. Calvary, in this program, has become the host site for a groundbreaking program which in essence is able to keep women out of prison for the first time or from repeated incarcerations by bringing the Attorney General of this city and the police department dealing with crime and vice right here to work with these women and try to keep them legally out of prison where they have no business being. And it's really touching, and it makes a big, real difference in this community. I promise I won't talk about the Requiem Mass anymore, but let me tell you this. Last week, after, I would have thought the whole building would have closed down and everybody, I hope every person in the choir, and John and Kristen had their feet up and something in their hands. But I learned that, oh no, downstairs by 6 o'clock that night, it had turned into room in the inn where homeless people are invited to come and are screened and brought through. It's a process through our city, but every Sunday night we are hosting this. And people were downstairs eating supper, a wonderful meal with these people, making up their beds and seeing to it that they had the best night's sleep they had had in years. And that's what one of the men told the volunteer the next morning. That happened after all of this upstairs. A heavenly morning up here, a heavenly night downstairs. That is Calvary Church today. And that is why I am glad that it is Pledge Sunday and that I and my financial wizard and I can give with great joy, because Calvary is indeed making God's love visible right here in downtown Memphis. So I hope you'll join me in the same prayer with which I opened this. Help us, O God, to remember through the example of Jesus Christ that what we keep we lose, and only what we give remains our own. Amen.